What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ. And today, for my Women in Sports series, I have a very special guest today, Samantha. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I was going to botch your last name, but I've been trying to get it right. Now, if I say it right, is it was it? It's like, you said it like graffiti, right? So, Praviti?
Yes, that's
Yes!
perfect. I've never
didn't
had
wanna botch
someone
it.
I've never had someone get it right on the first time, so I think you get some kind of award for that, but
Awesome. Star for me for today. So we're here today to highlight your achievements, talk a little bit about your start, have your origin story. You know, I love a good origin story. I'm a big comic book fan. I don't know if you are too, or if you're into superhero movies. Are you? Yes? No?
Not
No.
really. I'm
Great.
like so sheltered. I think it's like part of my brand that I don't know anything like pop culture wise. So like I've never
Wow.
seen any of the Avengers stuff. And it's
Oh
not
my
like I'm like
God.
I actively like don't want to see it. I just have
Haven't
never
saw it.
seen it.
It's like it's a little too late now. Like so much has
I
happened,
know.
and then
I
if
know.
you jump in, it just wouldn't feel the same. It just wouldn't feel like, wow, this is great.
I know. I mean, I shotgunned all of the Star Wars movies like in
Oh my God.
2016 before the one came out in like December, and I
Yeah.
watched like all of them in the course of 2 days or something like that, because people
Wow.
were making fun of me that I didn't know anything about Star Wars.
Well, I know nothing about Star Wars at all. At all. I've never seen one entire movie ever. And I think it's because when it came out, I was already like a young kid. I was on to, the cartoons, the Disney movies, obviously. And then Star Wars was a little too adult for me. And then the movies were like 4 hours long. So there was no way you're getting me to sit down for 4 hours.
I get that. I think it's a great series. So if you
Yeah.
ever like, I think I watched it like when I was sick, like dealing with like a cold or something like that. It's like
Yeah.
it's a good series to like shotgun when you're sick.
Wow. I don't know why I didn't do it for COVID. Like I had plenty of time, right? Like, what am I doing? Like, I should have just legit jumped into that.
Did you
instead of
have any
watching.
did you have any COVID like series that you watched? Like
Um,
Tiger King or
of
Ozark?
course,
I feel like that
Tiger
was a big
King.
one. Yeah.
No, Tiger King was a very interesting documentary. So we watched the show called You. We started that during COVID, which is a really good series. I know they're making series 3. I'm trying to think of this other show that I started. I'm not too sure of the name, but it was another show that I started where it got really good into it, but then it was times where I was just like lost. I think it was, what is it called? Oz or Arctic or something like
Is it
that.
Ozark?
Ozark, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I
That was
think
a
that's what
very
it is.
popular pandemic one, I feel like too. So
Yeah, so I started that, but I got to go back to really like catch up because I wasn't really like paying attention. What's going on, Dynasty Vipers? So let's get started. I wanted to get into your start into sports. Like, what was your favorite sports team growing up? Like, how did you become a fan? Like, when did your writing start sparking off and you create content?
sure, yeah. I actually didn't grow up in a family that watched sports or like was
Mhm.
into sports. I personally played sports growing up, but not any of like it was all like individual type things, right? Like I
Yeah.
did figure skating, gymnastics,
Oh, wow.
uh, tennis and track. And I also like did cheerleading a little bit in high school, but you can see how that's like not exactly the same. And I grew up kind of liking the Yankees. I think that's kind of like the only team that my dad would probably say he likes. So that was
Yeah.
kind of like a thing that we bonded over. And I really did like baseball growing up, but kind of
Yeah.
fell out of it a little bit and was really pushed into doing a STEM degree personally. I think I didn't have a lot of direction at 17, but like what kids
Yeah.
do, I don't know. Like
Right.
what were you like
Not
at
me.
17? I'm not the same person. So.
I'm completely different. That guy doesn't exist anymore.
Right. So like I thought I wanted to be a doctor because that's like
Yeah.
what my parents told me that I should do. And I ended up getting a degree in biology and math at McGill University. And my first jobs, I mean, all my jobs prior to this one were in analytics. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to do political stuff. I worked for a Democratic pollster right out of college. And I worked for a data firm and then kind of worked agency side a little bit. And then I got laid off from this agency and ended up going to New York, moved from Charleston, South Carolina to New York City. And yeah, and I joined, it's called a Wirecutter. It's a part of the New York Times. So they do product recommendations and stuff like that. And that was kind of my first jump into media. I never really thought that I would get into media, but yeah, I mean, I liked it. And then I got poached.
This wasn't fun at all. Wow.
No. Yeah. And so then I got poached by the Post, and I joined the Post as a manager of analytics, and had recently gotten promoted during COVID to director. So I had a very stable, normal 8-to-5 job.
Yeah. What were some of your responsibilities there, though?
Yeah, I was, making dashboards. Database type stuff like writing SQL and R and a lot of Google Analytics. So monitoring our web trends and kind of helping our newsroom make better decisions. And I guess that was kind of my role there. But right when I joined, I know like the Post has this very big like sports presence. And right when I joined, my boss at the time knew that I was a really big sports fan. So he like introduced me to all these people on the sports team. And I just got like really, really close with one of the editors. And we just for like a year would just send back and forth like stupid memes, like a Steph Curry meme or like something that just came up on our feed.
Make relationships. I'm telling you, like
they really do.
There's no conversation
like, you don't
between.
Exactly. Like it's a whole conversation just with memes, like no text.
Those are the best conversations. Like you understand what's going on just off of pictures and memes.
Right. And he knew that I really liked fantasy. And I think it was like so random. I think I just made a comment one time that was something along the lines of, you guys have the coolest jobs. Like I would love to do what you do or something like that. And because I think that people who work in sports, I mean, that's what we love, and you can do that full time. That's very cool. So he actually said something like, well, would you want to try writing anything sometime? And I was like, whoa, I never thought about that. Like never thought about getting my first byline in like a national outlet or anything like that. So I was super scared, and it was supposed to be like a once a week type thing in the preseason, and it would be hi, Troy.
Go away, Troy.
It was supposed to be a once a week thing in the preseason, and just to kind of see if it was something that I was interested in, kind of low risk type thing. And it ended up being that I had like over 600 bylines over the next 18 months. And that was on top of the job that I was already doing. I think some people kind of got it a little confused that they thought I already had a full-time job in sports, but I actually had a full-time job in analytics and was writing all on top of that. And it just turns out
that time, like, wow, that is, you're booked and busy.
I don't sleep a ton.
No I already took that out of the equation. I was like, she probably doesn't sleep.
I mean, I'm thankful that I have good stamina and a lot of passion for it. I think that's the biggest thing that,
it gives you drive because it's fun. It's not like something you don't want to do.
Right. So like, I was in Barcelona, for instance, and I was filing my like start say article coming home from like a club that night, eating like a Big Mac, trying to like sober up. And
that's where you get the best content. I'm telling you that right now. You get the best content.
But yeah, I mean, like you really have to love it sometimes, especially when you're in that stage of trying to just starting out. It can be very discouraging. You can put a lot of effort in for nothing. Not nothing, but not as much validation as you think.
Exactly.
And that was one thing too. Like my first year doing this, I got no recognition. Like, I mean, I grew as a writer a lot, and I got internal recognition from the Post, but I had no presence on social media, really, like none of that. And it really just started last July when I got accepted to Scott Fishbowl, which was super cool. And I just met a ton of people through that. Yeah. And that kind of coincided with me starting the TikTok, which I had been,
Yes.
just creeping on TikTok, scrolling all the time, and just thinking like, well, no one's really like doing this for fantasy football. Like, what if I
Yeah.
started to do that? And I was at a Taco Tuesday with my friend in the West Village, and we're having margs, and I'm like, what do you think if I like did all these TikTok trends and like made them about fantasy? And she's like, yeah, you should try it. So that's kind of how that was born, from a Taco Tuesday.
That's awesome. That is an awesome story right there, how that got started. Because I've seen your TikToks, and like you go really in depth, and it's really cool to have a fantasy community there now, and you being one of the founders. I mean, you're also the CEO of being asked why you're verified. You know what I mean? So could you explain a little bit of that? Because I heard you speak on it before, and I also seen your TikTok of you explaining why you were verified. You're even verified on Instagram, but for the people that don't know, if you didn't watch that video, I think it's important that you explain why.
Yeah, it's complicated. I think that some people don't realize that it's not, especially like the younger generation. I feel like they're not as savvy to like what verification means. They just think it means you have a lot of followers, which is not true, because the original intent of verification was to help people like immediately make that association that someone is a legitimate source. So that's why there are plenty of people on Twitter with under 1,000 followers that are verified, that are like part of NBC or something like that. So it's certainly not rare on other platforms, but I guess it is rarer on Instagram and TikTok, just because they're newer and they're not necessarily sources that people get for news right now. So yeah, the post has, and pretty much all major networks have relationships with all the like social media platforms. So they're able to talk to a rep and say, here's a list of these people that we think should be verified, that are going to be making content, and like, whatever, can you verify them? And that's how it happened for me. I did nothing on my end. I had 800 followers at the time. And like, I don't know why people just can't let me exist as a nobody on the platform, but there's just always, it doesn't matter like what I do. I like breathe, and they're like, why are you verified without clout?
Yeah, like I don't think people really truly understand. And like you hit on the point of, it's really the younger crowd. Like, it's more about your resume, your credibility, like what you can provide, like you said, as a source. So it's not really much about the count of followers. Like you said, there's people with like 1,000 followers or less that are verified, because it's the credibility, the resume, and they're a source that can give you insight and intel for things that you want to know about. So I think that was like the most awesome video you put on TikTok, just explaining that like in 30 seconds. So basically, like, it's not really about the clout, it's about what you can provide. You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of people are lacking right now with this whole social media thing.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's definitely the younger crowd, and it doesn't matter what I do. It's like any video that I make, or if I comment on someone's page, like I'll just be like, oh, hey, like, loved your video. And people are commenting on that. Like, why are you verified all the time? And it's like, what? Kyle, 8 numbers, like, should you be verified? Like, is that who TikTok should be verifying these days? I don't know. Like, it's just it's frustrating for sure, but because like I just want my videos to be about my videos and not about like a check mark. But always like stuff that you have to deal with on every platform. Every platform presents its own challenges, because they have a very different audience. Like TikTok and Instagram are so different. I think a lot of people think they're similar, but they're very different. So I've never really been asked about being verified on Instagram, and I have fewer followers. I have like half the followers on Instagram than I do on TikTok. So every platform is very different.
Oh my God, Troy, go away. Go away. You shouldn't be watching. Aren't you working, bro? I'm going to call you the boss. But I wanted to get into that because where do you make your time like important? Is it TikTok, Twitter, Instagram? Like, where do you spend most of your time to make your content?
Yeah, so I would absolutely say that I spend the most time on Twitter of any of the platforms. I think that at least I have found that I fit in with that like fantasy community very, very, very well. Like my voice works there. and I know that there are communities in Instagram and stuff, but maybe it's just like my content isn't super tailored towards that, or I just haven't taken the time to really make content that's Instagram specific, for instance.
Challenging for a lot of people with Instagram. Instagram is like a weird realm of like
Instagram's tough because it's like led by a fantasy football counselor who like is obviously extremely problematic. So I don't know. I'm not like necessarily jumping to get into that scene, but I do post content there, but it's not like that's not in the front of my mind like when I'm thinking about something, for instance. But yeah, so I guess nowadays it's still really Twitter, and I'll make the cadence of like video posting and stuff in the off season is a little harder too, because there's not a lot happening. There's only so much you can kind of say about the stuff that you have. And, you know, I try to still make videos, but it's a little, so I guess like TikTok has taken a little bit of a backseat this off season, but I think it'll definitely ramp up more. And I've been doing a little bit more recently. So part of it too was I was a little burnt out from the season because as like you kind of alluded to, just the amount of work that I did over the last year was actually kind of crazy. So like once like week 16, week 17 hit, I was just like, I just want to watch football.
I just want to enjoy the game today.
Right. Because like, you know, people just don't even realize like I was working on a normal Monday through Friday, but I was also working a full shift Saturday that was completely unpaid. Like for the sports desk, just writing about whatever news came up, like not fantasy football. Most of the stuff, like I wrote probably 450 articles in 2020, and like 65 of them maybe were about fantasy, and the rest were about other, like mostly NFL, but other sports too. Like if stuff just came up, that was what I was doing. So
what was your most popular post for, if it was like for in New York or anywhere else? What was like your biggest post? Like the biggest writing piece?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because the one that's the most popular is not a sports article at all. It's about Charlie D'Amelio, who has the most followers on TikTok. She's the biggest creator on the whole platform. And she like went viral because she was a brat on like a YouTube live, I think, or something like that. And she and her sister were just like acting like spoiled brats. They were spitting out food in front of their personal chef. Like, talk about disrespectful. And she got absolutely roasted, of course. Like, she literally said, like, I want dino nuggets instead of like the food after she spit them out.
Dino nuggets are good though. They're good.
No, sure, but you can see how that was perceived as very disrespectful to some chef in their so yeah, that article got 3.5 million page views. Wow. And we did follow-ups too, and I think one of the follow-ups got like 1.5 million, which was amazing. So unfortunately it was not about sports, but in terms of like some sports ones that did well, I know it like a Naomi Osaka one did really well. One of the Jordan Love Aaron Rodgers posts did really well, like right after the draft when everyone was just like, Aaron Rodgers is on the clock. So that was a really popular post. I think that got probably like 2.5 million page views. So I had I had maybe 7 break 1 million while I was there. So that's
dope.
Decent.
And this is all in a year. This is all in 2020, right?
Well, I started in late 2019 or like mid to late 2019, but yeah.
Wow. So your climb is amazing so far. Like what we touched on, that's dope. I mean, to have 7 articles hit over 1 million, that's nothing to be light about. Like you can't sleep on that. That needs to be like boom highlighted. You should put that in your bio. Just saying.
Thank you. Yeah. And then, I mean, like with the social media growth too, has been just a big part of my personal growth as well. If someone were to tell you like, oh, it doesn't matter how active you are on social media, it really does. Like especially there are some people that try to act like they're above it, and you really unfortunately, like if you hate it, like it's unfortunate, but you really can't not do it in this space.
You know what I mean?
And I'm not saying you all have to be the same. No one has to be like me, where I share every single little like piece of detail about my life, or everyone has their own like level of comfort with it, but you still have to be on it. So like in August of last year, I had 500 followers, and now I have 8,500, which I think is a decent amount of growth in like less than a year.
That's
Thank
great.
you. But before that, I had just been on Twitter and like not getting any follows. So shout out to Scott Fish. Shout out to, you know, all the people that seem to like my weird TikToks. That really definitely got me.
You know what's
noticed?
good? Like, the best thing about your TikToks is that you're being yourself. Like, you're being silly, you're being goofy, you're putting your personality into it. There's some TikToks that you watch, they're like, it's like cringy because like they're forcing it because that's what's trending right now. If you have your own mindset, your own way, you just being yourself, it comes off natural and it's great content. So like, I definitely applaud you for doing that, just putting your own personality, your own swagger to it.
Thank you so much. I mean, I guess I sort of try to be as authentic as possible on every single kind of platform. That's even like why I spoke out about the stuff today, just because I thought it was almost like I felt guilty, and I felt like like I wasn't being authentic if I didn't say that that was something that was bothering me today. So just being authentic, that's very, very important for everyone's journey.
Thank you for sharing your story as well. I mean, that is something that's been going on in this community for as long as I've been involved in the Twitter space. And I think that's what created this entire series and created this entire podcast, because, you know, there's a lot of guys behind the scenes and a lot of guys that are speaking out too, that are like me, that are really sick of it. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be like something done about this. So like, me doing my part is to have you on my show, highlighting achievements of what you've done, what you can do, what you provide, you know, and basically have them keep punching the air because they're mad because you're growing, you're killing it, you're being you. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of those accounts, like, they have no profile. They have 20 numbers behind their name. So like, as someone who has a platform that you have, how do you deal with the trolls? Like, how do you navigate all this stuff? Like, how do you, you know, get through your day with all these people attacking for no reason?
It's definitely the $1 million question. And I would say that up until recently, I didn't have like a lot of trolls on Twitter. I would get a lot of nasty emails. There's like an email function on the New York Post's website. There's email the author. And oh my goodness, like, I wrote about that courtside Karen debacle, and so many people came out and they were like, "You're a racist for using the slur Karen. Like, how would you like it if I used," and then like all these terrible derogatory things. So I was dealing with more of that. So I would say, like, up until recently, it was kind of very light. And I think it came to more of a head with the whole like Barstool Cam Akers thing that happened a few weeks ago, and then that's kind of when I really realized, like, this is going to be more present in my life. I mean, there's always been trolls, but I think that was probably like the worst occurrence of it. That was probably one of the first instances too, where I really let social media bleed into my real life, because I, like, at one point I did like start crying, and I kind of had like a little bit of a breakdown because I was just very embarrassed about the whole thing, and I was trying to make light of it. And that's kind of my brand, is like, and it's not a front. It's a defense mechanism. I think it's like how a lot of people deal with stuff, is how like they try to make a joke out of it. But it got to the point that I was like, I can't joke about this anymore. It's embarrassing. So I mean, it's the $1 million question that I think everyone kind of has to find their own coping mechanism for it. I think mute and block and unfollow are your friends.
I'm going to make search for that. I'm going to make search, mute and block.
I know. So up until very recently, I had like almost no one blocked. And now I'm just like, you know what? Like, you say something racist or like sexist, why do I want to hear you? Like, why do I care about you? So, I mean, using that more liberally definitely is starting to help.
Yeah, I mean, because like a lot of people, like, even for me, like, getting into this space, like, I have trolls, believe it or not. And it's like, it's kind of new for me for people to say and do these things while, you know, I'm just being on the internet, being myself. So to have trolls, that's like something new for me. And I'm pretty sure it was new for you as well, because in our real lives, like when we put the phone down, we're not dealing with people coming up to us saying that stuff because they probably get punched in the face. You know what I mean? So it's definitely
no one
like
would ever say that kind of stuff to me. Yeah.
no. And it's like, it's a whole new world with these trolls where they feel safe behind the computer. They can say what they want and there's no consequences because there's no profile name that has their actual name. There's no picture. We don't know where these people work. And then it's just like crazy. So like, it's definitely a new experience for all of us. Like you said, we had to find ways to deal with it. We have to find ways to, I guess, like mute and block and just leave it alone so it doesn't bleed into our real lives, because mentally that can mess with a person, man. Like I'm so against cyberbullying as well, because I have friends that were victims of that as well. So it's kind of like it's something I just want to just choke and shake, like trolls stop. Like I wish there was a button where you could just erase them all, but you can't. So it's like, it's definitely like a way that we all can come together as a fantasy community and try to help each other out in time of needs like this, especially what recently happened with the sexual harassment and DMs and stuff like that. I think it's our job as a community to put these people on Front Street, put them on blast. It's not really giving them a platform. It's not really, you know, giving them more clout. It's like, hey, this person did this. This person's here. This is what they are. This is what they look like. This is their profile. Don't interact with them, block them. Don't let them grow. Don't let them have these jobs that we're trying to get as well with the industry guys as well, because it's not fair. You're going to act like that in the workplace. Come on now. You got to go.
Yeah, it's I guess that stuff is really frustrating. And I think what is also really, like, I think you touched on this a little bit, that since it's kind of like not really like, I mean, now it is my job, but before it was sort of my job, but not really my job. But like, if you think about your actual job, I actually don't know what you do for a living. So, okay. So like, no one tells you that you're like an idiot after, or like the stuff that people will say. And I'm like, I've never gotten that kind of feedback on a PowerPoint. Like that's how I felt. I was like, oh my God. Like the moment my very first article, someone replied like, I'm not taking fantasy football advice from a socialist woman. And I was like, wait, hold on. Or like communist woman. And I was like, hold on. Like, where are you getting this info?
Oh my God. Like they actually typed that and sent that. Like,
yeah. So I actually screenshot it and made it the banner for my Twitter.
Oh, you're sick.
I think it's funny because there are a lot of people too that'll tell you, oh, don't give them any attention, like what you were saying. And I think everyone's coping mechanism is different. I happen to give people more attention. Like I will quote tweet them because I'm like, you're showing yourself. You're saying the like quiet part out loud right now. And
like you think you're in one thread by yourself talking, and no, I'm going to put you on Front Street. Everybody's going to see this.
Yeah. So I know it's kind of giving them what they want, but also it's everyone copes with it differently, and it's easier said than done. I think there are a lot of people too that will tell you, and I know they mean well, but they'll say something like, just ignore them. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Just, it's like telling you like, just grow taller or something. Or like,
thank you. Okay.
Okay. Right now. Right. I mean, of course, we can all get better at that stuff, but there's sometimes that it's just inevitable that it is something that you like feel like you need to address. So
yeah, most definitely. And that's definitely what's dope about this fantasy community. I mean, like, if there was one thing that you can change about the fantasy community, if there's any, like, what would you change?
I don't know if this is like a lame answer, but I just think that we need more minority representation. Maybe that's an expected answer rather than a lame answer, because I don't think it's lame. But you know, I went to right before the shutdown, so it was like March 10th that I was at this sports analytics conference. It was held at MIT, and it was like MIT and Harvard like hosted it, and it's sports betting, sports fantasy people. And Nate Silver was on stage, and he was like, I'm going to estimate that the audience is 95% white male. And like, that was the conference that I was at. And like, that's so intimidating. And people don't realize how intimidating that is. If you're a woman, or if you're a person of color, or if you were just a different class of person, you don't have the same background. Like these kids are all they're all coming from, having a Harvard education, and that's not something that a lot of us have. So it feels very unapproachable. And I think that we really need to showcase non-traditional paths, because especially people with minority backgrounds tend to have more non-traditional paths. And I think we need to normalize that more, because there isn't just one way to get into this. And that mentality is what's keeping a lot of people out. And it's not just, in the fantasy sports, it's in a lot of different industries as well. So we really need to work hard to promote other voices, because I think, we just, I don't know how to phrase this, but I just really think that we all bring something so different to the table. Like your perspective is going to be so different than my perspective, and everyone just brings different things. And why would you not want to hear different thoughts on things? Like it's just, to me, if you're against that, if you think, like, people will say to me all the time, they're like, affirmative action hire or something like that. They'll say that right to my face. Like I had a coworker at the Post, which, first of all, I wasn't even getting paid for the sports stuff. So I think that that's kind of funny. And like, they literally were like, oh, you're writing for sports now. That's like, and he literally said something like, this place is getting so politically correct.
What?
I was like, first of all, who pays our paychecks? Fox News. Second, I'm not even getting to that. but second, like, why would you say that to my face? I mean, but that kind of showcases like this mentality of exclusion, and like that there's this assumption that if you're different in any way, like you only got there because of that. And it's like, yes, I think it's absolutely should be a factor, because we need to promote more diverse voices. But why is it that because I'm Asian and because I'm female that you just assume I'm not qualified for the job? Like it blows my mind.
That's trash mindset. That's absolutely terrible, because
there's a lot of people too that like are never going to want to listen to me, never going to want to listen to you, and like whatever, that's their prerogative. But there's also a incoming generation, or a pliable generation, like that I think we really can change. So there are always going to be people that are just like, I'm not listening to a fantasy football advice from a communist woman, but which is weird.
It's so crazy that happened. And then you put it as your banner. You're sick.
I know. I just like, I don't know. I wear it as like a badge of honor. Like, especially with all those like that hate comment montage thing. That was like a way that I felt like was coping with it, because also, if you don't, but like some people are like, well, all we do is focus on the negatives, and like I just want to talk about football. And it's like, that's great that you can stick to like that pisses me off so much when people are like, I wish that we didn't have to talk about these race issues. I wish we didn't have to talk about this. And it's like, who also doesn't want to talk about them? Like the people that are experiencing it.
Exactly.
Like
you're tired about hearing racism. Yeah. As me as a Black man in America, imagine dealing with it for the last 29 years. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, you're tired about hearing about it this short period of time that it's, on Front Street now, that it's mainstream. Okay, you're about a good year and a half into it. I'm about 20 plus years into it of dealing with it. So it's like those people are trash. Like, I don't want them in my audience. I don't want them watching my videos. I don't want them interacting with people on my thread at all. So like, go away. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, go away. If you don't want to hear it, go away.
It's obviously super frustrating, because from our perspective, like, it is such a privilege if you can experience sports without the politics, because we've never been able to experience sports without the politics. And that's true of so many people, so many different facets of the sports, players in the sport, like how much racism and stuff that they have to deal with. So like, to say that you just want to not have to deal with that, or like not focus on the negativity, and it's like, well, that's great that you don't have to focus on it, but like, I'm the one that has to deal with it. So we're the ones that have to deal with it. So, and those struggles and those different things like all kind of help us bring sort of a diverse viewpoint to things, like, because we recognize that there is no separating sexism in sports and racism in sports. And those are the issues that like we really need to address, I think, too. Like that, you know, if you're coming at it and you've just never experienced things, how do you know what questions to ask? How do you know what things to research?
Yeah, exactly. Nail on the head. I mean, a lot of those issues and struggles that you hit on, I mean, that's what's kind of keeping, like, you know, even African American, you know, guys that are actually or women that are thinking about doing what we do, like to get on the front of the screen, to do YouTube, you know, do content, right? Like it kind of scares them off because they're watching us deal with these things. So like what would be some encouraging words, you know, for other women, for even other men out there to want to do what we do, to write, to do video content, to be, you know, on Twitter and be able to put our thoughts and stuff out there freely, because we got to deal with trolls regardless.
I think what's encouraging is that I'm seeing so many companies actually make an effort to really promote diversity. There are companies out there that it's just a tagline and then they only say something when someone gets shot or something happens. But there are companies that are making a really serious effort to hire talent and to promote diverse voices. And I think that, I'm not going to lie, like it's going to be harder probably. And you're going to have to deal with a lot of different stuff that other people just don't have to deal with. I spoke to a journalism class and there was an African-American woman that like asked me a question about like Instagram Live. And she was saying like, there's no one that looks like me basically giving Giants advice or something like that. And she said it was really discouraging. And I get that. And I think it's just one of those things that like the more people are doing it, the more it's showing others that they can do it too. Like it's so hard to be first, or it's so hard to be early to things because you know you're just going to you're on the vanguard and you're going to get like so much of the blowback, but it's only going to, I believe that it's only going to get easier from here. So I think not easier, but better. I think bringing these issues to light and having male advocates too, and like advocates from other races and stuff, like really be allies. Like that's what people really need to be doing right now if you really do care about it, if it's not just a tagline to you type thing.
Exactly. Because I think
I think it'll be better. It'll get better.
I think this fantasy community, for the most part, for what I see, like everybody's like, that's what's so dope about the fantasy community on Twitter is like we come together when we need to. We like to pick each other up. We like to, you know, say, hey, hit my DM if you need to vent. It looks like you've been going through a long day. I had plenty of long days and people would hit my DM and make sure I'm okay, which is dope. I never had that on Instagram. I never had that interaction on Facebook. Hell, I never had that interaction in real life when I put the phone down. So it's really dope that I have these friends that I met on Twitter, that I met on, you know, other social media platforms. And it's like, man, that is so encouraging. And that right there is what keeps me wanting to do this. That's what makes me want to do the research and get in front of a camera or do an article here and there, because I know there's people out there that have my back. So like coming into it at first, I went into it not knowing anything about Twitter or Instagram. Like I was on Facebook doing fantasy content. That community over there, whew, I don't know how I made it out because it literally—
Is it worse than Twitter? I've actually not been on any of the—
Don't go. It is so worse because you have people that been there for so long that were doing, you know, their draft picks in a notepad, like that type of community. So me being an African male talking about fantasy football, I got attacked literally 9 times out of 10 when I first started. You don't know football. You don't know what you're talking about. I always spun that little joke that I don't know football. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, well, soccer is my main sport. I played soccer since I was 4. I love watching soccer. I love soccer more than football. So, hey, maybe you're right, but I'm going to keep doing this. You know what I mean? So, like, that community over there is just so toxic. I would not recommend anybody go to any Facebook fantasy football group because, man, I don't know if you're going to make it out if you want to start. So probably if you want to start right here on Twitter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think one thing that people say a lot too that really bugs me is this whole concept of like the space is so oversaturated.
Thank you for saying that.
And I think that it frustrates me so much because I'm like, you think it's oversaturated because you're only thinking that it can fit into this small subset of content. And you know, like the analogy that I'm thinking of is like, you know how they say like you only use 10% of your brain or like whatever, like that's what we're using so maybe that 10% is like oversaturated right now, but there's this whole other 90% of stuff that we're just like not even touching right now.
Yeah,
and that's like what these diverse voices are going to bring to the space, and like different generation. And I mean, it's not even just diverse voices, it's like younger, like the younger type of content is just something that no one's ever really done. Like Matthew Berry and Daniel Dopp out there doing like a crazy fantasy show. Like that is so much fun and so different than anything that ESPN has.
That's the core thing about it. It's entertaining. It keeps me glued. That's what the most important thing is about, keeping me glued.
So like, the concept that it's oversaturated, I hate that. And like, don't let anyone tell you that and like dissuade you. Like I've had so many people tell me that, and I'm like, well, is it oversaturated for people that are looking for like an Asian woman to give you fantasy advice? Because I bet it's
not. Because like I hate that comment, because it's like you're scaring people away that actually are thinking about doing this. Like this may be something they love. It may be something that they have like in their 5-year plan that they want to do content. They want to start writing for a major company. You're scaring those people away. It shouldn't be like that. It's not saturated because, one, I honestly think nobody's going to put out content like me, because I do crazy takes. I put my swagger to it. Like I'm me. I'm one-on-one. Like I put my personality 100% into fantasy. So when you watch my videos, you're going to be entertained from 000 to, you know, third. I go on a rant about Odell Beckham probably. But anyway, so you're going to get my swagger. You're going to get everything I bring to the table. And I think, hey, it's not saturated because I'm the only one doing it. I'm thinking outside the box as well. Just because you're stuck in your ways, you're not thinking outside the box and not bringing that new demand. I mean, that sounds like a personal problem. Sounds like you need to hustle better. You need to figure something out. Go back to the drawing board. Like, come on, man. I really hate when people put that out there, because I ultimately think you're like scaring away the people that actually want to do this.
Yeah, it all goes back to this zero-sum mentality that I think a lot of people have, not just in the fantasy space, but like it's not that way. Like, for instance, this job that I was recruited for, which was awesome. Like I never thought that I'd be recruited for a sports job. It was, you know, like my dream. But my point is that it was not even a job listed on their website. They weren't even like actively seeking. I asked them like multiple times. I was like, so what's like the title for this job? Like, is there a job description? And they were like, no, it's like, we're going to make the title based on you. And I'm like, oh, and I think what that shows though, is that if you can show that you're bringing something different, companies will find a way to make that a part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's not a matter of like, oh, well, I don't see any fantasy jobs posted here or something like that. Like, yeah, it's hard to break into this space, but if you can be unique and be a little different and bring skills, like bring tangible skills to the table, then companies will find a way to make it work.
Oh, for sure. They'll find a way to create a whole new department just for you, because you bring that fire. You bring something that they liked and they want to build off of it. I mean, you never know. Some of these companies, you never know who's watching as well, too. I always like to keep that in the back of my mind. So you never know who's watching your content. Like,
don't get discouraged. Like don't get discouraged too by like if there's a paucity of jobs out there, because I think like my situation may be a little unique, but like what's more important in this than submitting a cold application on NBC Sports website, like is having the connections that you make in this community, being part of those like retweet groups and like just engaging with more people. And that's going to take you so much farther in this space than just like being discouraged because like, oh, well, I don't see a job posted on PFF right now. It's like, well, engage with, if that's your dream job, then engage with the creators on PFF and like talk to them, and maybe they'll say like, hey, maybe not now, but in 6 months, like we'll have that talk or something like that.
Exactly. Oh my God. So this was an amazing conversation, but before I get you out of here, to say, I see you're a huge snowboarder and you ski, which is crazy. You really don't. Well, I don't really see people do both. I mean, what do you find better? Like, what do you prefer?
I have snowboarded since I was 7, and I never skied until about a month ago. And it turns out that I'm really good at skiing, and like not really good. Sorry, no, really good at skiing for someone who skied for 8 days. Like, so I'm already, hooked on it. So it's kind of like I was almost like, damn it, like this is just another expensive sport that I gotta like deal with.
But, it's very expensive. Oh my God.
Skiing's even more expensive is the thing. And I'm like, I know it's out of control. But do you ski or snowboard?
I snowboard once, and this was about 2 years ago, and I got a concussion. So
Oof.
no, I was done. I was a very but the thing is, here's the thing about snowboarding and surfing. It looks really cool when people do it. It looks fun. I skateboarded when I was younger, and I thought, hey, if I skateboarded, I can snowboard. I can surf, right? No, both of those failed. Like I couldn't even stand up on the board when I tried to go surfing. I went snowboarding and got a concussion and got snowmobiled down the mountain. So,
oh no! Oh my God, that's a really bad one.
Yes, I was knocked out cold.
Oh my God.
Okay, I spun around. I think I was facing the mountain, and the board caught snow, and that got slammed all the way back. So,
I've gotten a snowboard concussion actually. So I was wearing the red non-contact jersey for a while. That was a very expensive fall. I had to go to a neurologist. I did black out, but I like came to and skied down and like skied for the rest of the day because I thought I was just like, I just have a headache, but like it was more than a headache. Snowboarding can be dangerous. That's why I was like, I saw Alvin Kamara do it, and I was like, please don't hurt yourself.
No! I hate when they go quadding. Quadding is dangerous as well too. Like, stop! Don't do anything.
Yeah,
live your life.
I literally was like, don't tear your ACL because so many people do that.
Oh my God! I mean, sheesh. Hopefully you can keep on skiing, and maybe one day I'll get back out there and I'll try skiing this time, not snowboarding. I'm done with that.
It is so much easier to learn. So you'll be like a pro by day 2.
I'll be doing backflips and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hucking a backflip. Like, once you have that lift fear, you always start thinking like, maybe I could throw a backflip.
You're right. I got one last random question. So where does ketchup belong? Does it belong in the cabinet or the fridge?
Ooh, okay. That's a good question. I don't have any ketchup in my house. I have some I have a whole drawer of like condiment packets.
Oh my God, you're that person. A junk drawer full of mustard.
Oh yeah, ketchup. I've got like duck sauce, soy sauce, like ketchup, Cholula, like everything. Actually, someone from that thread that we were talking about, someone was like, you should refill bottles with that shit. And I was like, that is like galaxy brain. But so I guess the ketchup packets are not refrigerated. But I would think once you open the ketchup bottle, it should be refrigerated. But I err on the side of refrigerating things over not. And I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong. Am I wrong?
I am a person that leaves my ketchup in the cabinet. I personally don't like cold ketchup because most of the time I'm putting ketchup is on a hot sandwich. You know what I mean? So why would I want cold and hot? And when you put ketchup and you squirt that first one, it's liquid. It's like disgusting. It's like soggy. It makes the bread soggy. I'm just that guy. That's why I just cannot stand ketchup in the fridge. But you answered that perfectly. I mean, if you have the junk drawer full of ketchup and mustard and stuff, that lets me know I can trust you. I can trust you now.
Oh my goodness. I am that person. So very obnoxious. I've got all utensils too. Like, I mean, like every time like the takeout place gives me like 3 sets of utensils, I'm like,
yes, you're supposed to do that. Or you go grocery shopping. I have a cabinet under the island. I have a cabinet full of like plastic bags. I know I'm not the only one who does that. Yeah, that's normal.
We're just resourceful. That's all.
Yes, that's all. Just save money too.
Exactly.
Oh my God, this is awesome. I want to thank you for coming on and giving me the opportunity to, highlight some of your moments. And this was a great time. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself too.
Oh my God, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yes, that was the goal. I definitely want to have you back. I definitely want to keep in contact. I think we kind of built like a friendship. I mean, first time meeting.
I feel very close to you.
Yeah,
I feel like I could tell you everything right now. Like you have trust issues.
The chemistry is there, the energy is there, the vibe is there. And I want to thank everybody for watching. This was a great interview. I'm definitely going to post this again. I'm going to take clips. I'm going to take clips of this moment. This was such a great conversation. And then, our universes will collide again.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thanks, guys, for coming through. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace.